Welcome in, builders. This week we're taking a look at Machaka, Reign of Sorcerers. I already liked Machaka in the early age, and I have always liked Machaka in the middle age, and recently we've had a patch which actually, ironically enough, buffed the big spider boys a little bit. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those and check out this nation. It's a fun one. It's a nation that has a decent smattering of different kinds of troops, from some very heavy cavalry down to some pygmy archers. So a decent amount of variety here. Let's check in and see what's happened to Machaka in the Middle Ages. Machaka is an old sacral kingdom where the well-being of the land is thought to be dependent on the will of the king. The king is the highest priest of the kingdom, but should he fail in his duties, he is sacrificed and replaced by one of his numerous sons or brothers. The priests of the kingdom are the true rulers of the land. Religious ceremonies, judicial tasks, gathering of intelligence are all performed by the eyes, ears, and voice of the Lord. Only warfare is handed over to secular commanders. Machaka uses light infantry, archers, heavy hoplites, second only to those of Asphodel. In the forest of Machaka, giant spiders are caught and used as mounts. One other area is left untouched by the priests: magic. Simple witch doctors living outside villages grudgingly serve as priests. In the depths of the god forest lies the lonely mountain filled with caves. Here resides the true power of Machaka, even above the priests, the black sorcerers, sorceresses, and their spider warriors. A lot has changed in Machaka since early age. The spiders have taken over. Gone are the days of lion and rhino and hyena, and now we have our new spider overlords, and they control, as mentioned up here, basically everything in Machaka. Let's take a look at their national features. We are humans. We don't have anything too crazy out there. We prefer a heat scale of +2. For military, we run the gambit from heavy infantry, light infantry, heavy spiders, light spiders. We have assassins. We have okay archers, although our archers have really been outscaled by other natures and by armor tech at this point. For magic, we have good fire, earth, death, nature, and glamour. Yeah, you heard me right. We are okay at all of those things. It is pretty good variety and gives you a lot of options. And we're not too cap dependent on the magic, although we have some good cap only stuff too. For priests, we are average. For scales and blessings, we prefer, or we have the option to take a heat limit of +1, so we could go up to heat 3 if we so desired. For buildings, we can build standard forts of the era. For sites in Machaka, we have the God Forest. This allows us to get our sacreds and spider archers. Spider archers were similar in the early age. Pretty interesting unit. This gives us 1 nature and 1 fire. We also have the God Mountain. This gives us a whole bunch of other units, including our assassin unit and our spider warrior units, along with our different sorcerer and sorceresses. It also provides us with 2 earth and a glamour, and boosts ritual range by 1 province, which it's a nice little bonus to get there. Units and sacreds. We have a interesting lineup here, some more usable than others. A bit unfortunate. I wish we had maybe picked up composite bows or long bows or crossbows, but we did not. So we have the same pygmy we had in early age. Again, a pretty good unit if you're going to do flaming arrows, I would say. So at size 2, you can fit 5 of them in a square. So you're going to get a lot of flaming arrows out of these guys. And because flaming arrows does 8 armor piercing damage, their low base damage on the short bow does not matter like it would with poison arrows. Poison arrows actually have to deal damage through your armor to be able to apply the poison. And it's going to be very unlikely, even in early age, these guys struggle with that. They're definitely going to struggle with it in the middle age where armor is much more common. Beyond that, though, possibly just pumping a bajillion of these into a fort and having flaming arrows for them might be a viable use. Next, we have the Machaka Militia. They are a militia unit. They have 8 morale. They're dirt cheap. They are garbage. I would not get these guys. Next, we have a Machakan Archer. Do note this isn't Bird Clan, like we used to get the 12 or 13 precision, whatever it was really good. This is just a short bow on a human. Not particularly useful at this point in middle age, unfortunately. I'm going to jump to the last archer. We have the Spider Archer. Remember, this is a cap only and forest. So that's at least something. Again, it's just a poison bow. It's okay. I do think if you were going to give them Strength of Giants and either fire arrows or poison arrows, that would make them more interesting. I think I'm 90% sure that poison arrows stack with this poison, so you could double up on that. That could be something, but you're going to have to buff them to make that useful. Unless you're fighting somebody like Machaka, who just doesn't really have good armor, you're just never going to get that poison to actually be able to proc. Going back to our melee troops, we have Machakan warriors. Unfortunately, this is half of our starting army. We have no armor, we have a normal hide shield, a normal spear, and a javelin. 10 gold, 3 resources, 9 recruitment. They are cheap, but they're also pretty useless. Great for using as a screen. Put these in front, have them throw their javelins before they eat a lance to the face. Gives them a use at least. Next, we have the Machakan warrior. Machakan warrior is a little bit better. At least we have a length 4 spear, but no armor, nothing else of use. As a screener unit, I think I'd rather throw a javelin before I die. At least I tried. I'm not sure what this guy exactly is going to do. Next, we have the Machaka Hoplite. This is a good unit. We are now in full plate, although we only have that great hide shield, not something better. A little bit unfortunate there. But the trade-off is we're able to use a Machakan spear, which is length 4. Now, we only have 10 attack, so we would really like the attack buff from Fire Thaumaturgy, and we can do that. We have the right pathing for it, and we would really like that. +2 here would make them much, much better at repelling, and we are formation fighters, so we're going to be packed in nice and tight to get buffed. Very good, very good. Can take buffs pretty well, whatever you're going to toss at them. Protection buffs, attack buffs, morale buffs. They are a little skittish with 11 morale for a hoplite unit. That's a little weird. Yeah, a nice unit. Do note here, 14 gold, 27 resources, 18 recruitment points. This is a little pricey. Do note that the resources are needed more than recruitment points. So in general, we want more production scales than we want order scales. Next up, we have the Spider Warrior. This is a cap-only unit. Pretty good. He has spider armor and a full helmet, which work out to 19 on the body and 21 on the head. And he's a dual wielder. He has a falchion and a dagger that he's good at both of those. He also has dark vision and stealth. Dark vision gives us an ability to maybe get down into the caves. This is an okay unit for fighting down there. I like these a lot. Their problem is they're going to compete for resources. They're very resource intensive. 20 gold, 36 resources, 31 recruitment points with our Sacred. And same thing with the Machakan Hoplite, but at least the Hoplite we can get elsewhere. This is a cap only. A little unfortunate there. This is a nation whose Sacred is so good, I think you're always going to go with a big bless. So this guy, probably not going to see a ton of them, unfortunately. Next, we have a Spider Rider. This is a naked dude with a spear and a short bow on the back of a spider. I think these are okay. I would put these behind your main line and on range, like range and keep distance or something, so they spit their web out and hopefully tie people up for your melee to hit. Next, we have the Spider Knight. This is probably a much better unit. I don't know. Again, though, 26 resources, 36 recruitment points. You're competing with your Sacred, and your Sacreds are just so expensive, you're probably going to eat up most of your resources. If you didn't, he has a spear. He's in our plate gear. He's on an okay spider chassis. He's fine. He's fine. He's definitely usable. He's just so outclassed, unfortunately, by the Black Hunter. This is an amazing Sacred. The Black Hunter is a full-plated guy. He has a full lance, so we get that nice chunky first hit bonus. You only get the one of them, and then you switch over to a falchion, which we are very good at. 12 attack and 19 slashing damage. Do note that he is size 3 and our mount is size 9, so you're only getting one of these per square. Being in the full plate gear and having a nice shield, I don't find that I lose these too much. The odds are most attacks are going to go into the spider, and the spider is capable of taking care of himself pretty well too. Hunter Spider, he has Sacred. He is poison resistance 15, force survival, animal, stupid, and smart. If you lose the rider, you might attack your own units. If you lose your rider, you'll probably go back to the capital to be recruited for half price. And 100 gold, 37 resources, 56 recruitment points. This is not a cheap unit, but you definitely get what you pay for out of him. I tended to find that I would run out of resources before recruitment points, but your mileage may vary on that a little bit. Also of note, I don't think it applies to the units, but in a recent patch, they made it where you can reacquire mounts if your mount has an affliction. So the commander version of these benefits greatly from that. If his spider gets wounded, you can retire old 7 leg there and get a fresh one, which is a nice buff. So you'll have a lance attack, you'll have a good falchion attack, and while you're in melee, you've got venomous fangs, which have a death poison for 35 damage, and he's strong enough to actually use it. And he does web, which is only 5 fatigue cost, and you can tie people up. I find these guys very killy. One thing to note, though, don't get too cocky. 5 of these guys versus 50, you're going to get surrounded and worn out. Even if you're killing like 1 or 2 guys per turn, every single turn, that's when these guys get wiped out. So be careful. Don't let them get completely surrounded. And it also just, I guess, depends on your blessing, what you want to do there. Overall, a very strong Sacred. I quite like that one. A okay lineup. They say light troops, but the light troops are basically unusable in this age. So I think it mostly comes down to the Hoplite, maybe the Spider Warrior, and your Sacreds. Outside of your capital, your Hoplite and your other Spider Knights are much more interesting, but for the capital, you're just going to be so tied up in Black Hunters. It's going to be really difficult to get anyone else. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. Machaka has a pretty good roster for all of these things. Starting with our heroes, we have a decent smattering, some better than others. We have the Lady of Spiders, notable for being a pretty strong magic user here, a pretty good mage. She has a good research. Poison resistance, she changes shape into a great spider. Note that is not those ginormous hunter spiders. They're the more spindly looking ones. She has force survival, and she has Dominion Monster Summoner. Generally speaking, if you see this on this nation, they summon in spiders. I'll show you that chassis here in a minute. Next, we have the hero. He's an okay leader. I don't have much else to say about him. He's not sacred. He does have force survival, I suppose. We have King Triumphant. He's nice in that is a priest level 3, which otherwise we do not have any available. He's got awe. He is, however, old and inspirational. Great leader if you get him. I generally use him as a second prophet, which really helps you get out and claim thrones and get your blessing out. Your blessing can be a little hard to put out because your guys are so big. Next up, we have the Crowned Ape. I believe these summon in Bandars or Machakas. I don't think these are spiders. I didn't get him in my test game, so I can't verify that. He's a priest level 1, sure. And Ape Oracle. Again, I guess he has Fortune Teller 10, which we don't have a lot of, so that gives you something to do with him. Otherwise, whatever, basically on that. Going up to our commanders, we can see we have a large roster here. Scout. This is a standard Scout chassis. We have a Machaka Chief. The Machaka Chief is a bad leader. He's only at 75. He is dirt cheap. I might get some of these guys if I was going to use them to build forts, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not too in love with this chassis. Next, we have the Machaka Commander. I do like this one. We now have Iron Cap, Plate Halberd, Great Hide Shield. The Great Hide Shield's not too great, but it's at least a decent shield. Pretty good parry on it, I suppose. Also of note, we have Machakan Spears, which are length 4. That's pretty nice there. Overall, pretty good chassis here. Next, we have a Spider Lord. Same guy, but now he is mounted. Do note his defense here is 18 versus the on foot one is only 14. If I had the choice, I think I would go with some Spider Lords. This might also be my preferred place to put a Prophet. He's not already sacred, so you'd be increasing that. If not him, then maybe Voice of the Hunters when we look at him here, or maybe even just a Machaka Commander, depending. Next, we have the Eyes of the Lord. An interesting unit here. He's kind of a utility piece. So, Priest level 1, he is sacred. He's got Force Survival. He has a patrol bonus of 15. So pretty darn high there. 17.8 patrol strength with just him. So could be pretty good if you're trying to patrol something out. He also has Tax Collector. Tax Collector is an ability that normally to get money from owned territory, you need to trace a land connection via contiguous owned territory. Tax Collector will let you collect even if you're cut off from your own forts. So you would use this guy in a raiding party, and like if the enemy's coming up behind you and taking the land as you're like running ahead through his land, this is a way that you could get the tax money out of it. Probably worthwhile if you're going to do some serious raiding to have one of these guys in there, but otherwise, meh. I guess he could help bless your hunter spiders, so he does have at least some combat use there. Next up, we have the Voice of the Lord. This is a priest level 2. Can be pretty nice for getting our blessing out onto our sacreds and for casting Sermon of Courage. Next up, we have the Ear of the Lord. The Ear of the Lord is a Glamour Mage 1, priest level 1. He has 7 research for 60 gold. I believe this is our most efficient researcher, and that should worry you a little bit. He is stealthy and pretty good stealth. 4 survival and a spy. Spies are interesting in that you can go to an enemy capital and you can use them to look at the score graphs, and you can take an action that increases unrest. Do note this is a sacred, so you could put extra stealth blessing on him, making him very hard to patrol out. So you'd go to people's forts and then you would do a bunch of instill uprising, I think is what the ability is called, and give them a bunch of unrest that would hopefully cut down their recruitment points and their money income. Next up, we have the Witch Doctor. The Witch Doctor is a mediocre mage, unfortunately. Fire 1, Death 1, Nature 1. He's a inept researcher 4, so he does 7 research for 88 gold per year, so not very good there. Should be noted, we can also recruit him in all forests, so you would need a lab, but you could get him outside of forts, which is kind of handy. That's not too inefficient. And he could do some combat magic, mainly Banefire darts is probably what he would end up doing. So you do have a use for him. Next up, we have the Sorcerer. This is a quite good mage. Not cap only. 300 gold, so a little on the pricey side. You get 1 fire, 1 death, 2 nature, 1 glamour, and a random of fire, earth, death, nature, glamour. This guy is really notable for having the 2 nature and the death crosspath, which we need for one of our national spells. Otherwise, nature's a good combat spell. Nature plus death gives us an interesting poison spell we can do. Overall, pretty good. A little hard to use, though. You're paying a lot of money and a lot at 240 gold up per year upkeep for a wide variety of low paths, which I don't love, especially on things that can't get into communions. Next up, we have the Voice of Hunters. This is our big sacred commander version. He is a priest level 1. He is sacred. He has a full lance, which he is very good at, and a falchion, which he is very good at. Unfortunately, he's wearing a crown and not a full helmet, but I didn't find in practice this was too bad. Although if you're under withering fire, that would suck. Maybe give him an actual helmet. He rides a Hunter Spider, as we saw. The Hunter Spider is a good chassis. It is sacred itself. It has 15 poison resistance. 4 survival, it is an animal, but 14 morale, 13 magic resistance, so no major hole there. He is both stupid and smart. So stupid is if you lose the rider, he might start randomly attacking your own troops. And smart means if you lose your rider after combat, he will probably make it back to your capital to be cheaply recruited for another unit. Overall, Voice of the Hunter, pretty darn good unit. I generally like to have 2 of these guys teamed up with a few sacreds each, and that way they can each try to bless and get everyone blessed for raiding or expansion parties. Next up, we have the Bane Spider. This is a cap only. This is a Glamour 1 assassin who has a Bane Blade and a Bane Dagger that he's very good with. Note the Bane weapons, if you hit people and they don't save, they get decay. He has a full helmet and spider armor. So he is a very, very good assassin. If you don't kill him with magic, he probably wins the assassination attempt. And with Glamour, You could put some illusions out in front of you. You could mirror image. You could blur. Pretty darn good. Very, very good assassin. Limited strongly by being cap only. Next up, we have the Spider Sorceress. This is a cap only. I like this one a lot as my early researcher. Fire 1, Earth 1, Death 1, Glamour 1. 100% chance to get Fire, Earth, or Death. Now, that doesn't sound too great there. 15 research for 184. Again, doesn't sound too good there. She has poison resistance, forest survival. She's old, although not too old, so they're not going to have humongous penalties. But her big thing is Dominion Monster Summoner. And from what I've seen, at least at Dominion 5, you get 1 spider per turn with these. Let's take a look at that chassis. This is the Great Spider from Machaka. Several of our shapeshifters turn into this one, and this is the free spawn on several things. Pretty good, actually. 26 hit points, okay attack, okay defense. Magic resistance is a major hole for this one. It is an actual animal. Poison resistance, forest survival, animal, undisciplined. But with 26 HP and a lot of attacks, including some web stuff, I actually like these a lot. I would take tons and tons of these if I could. So a good attack with venomous fangs he's good enough with that if you can damage somebody, 35 poison damage, death poison is great. You have a melee web attack, so you'll web them and then bite them. And remember, when they're webbed, you can get armor defeating hits, which helps you get through protection. And we have a ranged attack for spit. And the spit is another web attack. Note we are size 7, so we can easily push to the front if we put these guys behind our main infantry line. And we could share a square with a human troop to just help bulk it out a little bit. Excellent, excellent unit. That is why I really, really like to get this Spider Sorceress as my cap-only researcher. Next up, we have the Anasazi. This is another cap-only. 224 gold a year. A Death 1, Nature 1, Glamour 2, with 100% for Death, Nature, Glamour, and a 10% for Fire, Earth, Death, Nature, Glamour. So you can actually, if you lucked out, get some interesting pathing combos there. 224 gold a year, as I said, for only 15 research, not great. Poison resistance, she shapeshifts into a Great Spider, the chassis we just looked at. She has stealth. She's a Heretic 1. Heretic 1 means you act like a temple check for decreasing dominion in the province you're in. So ideally, you'd have a couple of these sitting in enemy territory, eating up their candles. She is also a spy. Do note we are not sacred here. And she causes unrest. This could be an interesting one if somehow you made some shrouds to get her sacred and you had taken a sacred stealth bless. A few of these in a province could, instill uprising while eating away the candles. I don't think I would ever make a build like that, but it's something different and interesting at least. Next up, we have the Black Sorcerer, again, cap only. A pretty powerful mage in his own right. 325 gold to recruit, just of note here, 280 and 230 for the previous two. So a quite big step up again in cost. He's also slow to recruit, as was the Anasazi. 2 fire, 2 earth, a death, a glamour, and a random of fire, death, earth, with 10% of the others. A pretty strong mage. I like this guy. You can do some rituals with him, like a remote spell that you can hit enemies with that's pretty good at killing pop and lowering income. He can do some of the magma-y stuff. He could do some of the buried in sands. A lot going on here. Banefire stuff. Do note he is actually pretty old though. He's 68 out of 46. So he's going to have some pretty heavy penalties. Winter is not going to be kind to him. He does wield a Bane Blade for some reason, so maybe he can poke somebody if they get to him. Overall, pretty good mage. I wouldn't get a ton of these, but a couple to do some summons, to do some crafting, to cast specific rituals, I think would be pretty darn good. Overall, who would I make my profit? Probably the Voice of the Hunter, or a Spider Lord, or a Machakan Commander. I think you can do any of the 3 of those and you would like it. The Spider Lord has a map move of 16, and the Voice of the Hunters has a map move of 20, so having that extra mobility is quite nice. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we have a few. First, we have an Enchantment 5, Weavers of the Wood. 4 nature ritual, costs 6 nature gems. You can extend the duration 3 months for every extra gem. This gives you patrol strength plus 100 versus enemy units in that forest where you cast it. And if you detect things, including invisible beings, they will have some spiders come and aid you in combat. I don't think this is very usable. It requires a forest. It requires a nature 4 guy to cast it and be alive to use it. I don't see the use here. But if you have that very specific use case, if nothing else, if your cap's in the woods, which I think we always get, this would keep assassins away from everybody. So that's something that it does at least. It's not totally useless. Next, we have Conjuration. At Conj 3, we have Herd of Elephants and Pride of Lions. My normal feelings about those are the same. The elephants aren't particularly useful. They're too cowardly. The lions are eh. But on this nation especially, do not do those 2 spells, because at Conjuration 4, we have God Brood. 2 nature and a death, which we can natively get on a non-cap only mage. This ritual costs 12 nature gems and gives us 6 Hunter Spiders. These are the same spiders that we use as mounts on our sacreds, and they are sacred. So this is pretty good. I will definitely spend 2 nature gems for one of those guys, and we do it on mass, so it's not like 1 turn is 2 gems and 1 spider. It's 1 turn is 12 gems and 6. Very, very nice there. Let's take a look at that chassis specifically. We have standard elephants, standard great lions, and the hunter spider. Do note the hunter spider. These are smarter spiders, apparently, because they do not have the stupid tag on them. So they will not randomly attack our own units. They are magic beings, so that can be a bit of a danger. I don't think... Yeah, they're a little bit different. We do not have the magic being tag on our hunter spiders normally. It's only on the summons. So there are some spells that specifically can target that. But we have 13 magic resistance and 14 morale. So we're pretty good there. Definitely worthwhile. I would spend most of my nature gems on these guys. And I would try to get out nature searching early to get that nature income. Extra sacreds that are good are always, always welcome. If you can get your nature gem up, let's say you get your nature gem income to 12 somehow, that would essentially double the amount of good sacreds you can get per turn. Very, very nice here. In other magic, I think in Conjuration, we want Summon Earth Power. We do have Earth 2s. That is pretty nice. We have death stuff, so we can summon in some of the death things. I think those are pretty good. I want to call out at Conjuration 4, Nest of Asps. This is a 1 nature gem combat summon, 2 nature and a death. Again, we'll have that. And it gives you 10 plus asps, which are size 1 snakes that have a deadly poison. Really nice there. Good distraction. Also, Nest of Salamanders. Again, these are essentially size 1 snakes. You get 10 plus for a fire guy. We don't have a lot of uses for fire gems. I think this is a great one. We can have these sprinkle in with our big spiders or even in on our troop line just to add some extra bulk and some extra poison to it. Pretty good there. Also, we have some glamour nature cross-pathing, so we could look at summoning Fey Folk and maybe even going all the way up to summon gnomes, which gets us better into Earth. Could be pretty good there too. Quite a good smattering of things from here. In Alteration, of course, we have all the standard buffs, including Eagle Eyes, which I really like on combat casters, Personal Barkskin. We can do either the nature or the earth protection buffs. We have plenty of units who would like to have more protection if we could get it. We also get Blood Poison at Alteration 5, requires 2 nature. Again, a non-cap only, non-solo recruit mage we can have lots of. Range 30, precision 100. Fatigue cost is only 20, and it gives you 15 magic poison and armor negating damage. This is similar to Frozen Heart. Very, very powerful spell here. If they're not poison resistance, 15 poison damage is going to rock their world. And those same mages, if we were to go up to Alteration 6, could cast Venomous Death, which is very similar to the previous spell, but now our damage is 25 plus poison magic, and they have a magic resist save, or they get decay. This is a absolute super combatant, thug, god killer. So if they are not poison, I mean, you'd have to have 25-ish poison resistance to even stand a chance against this spell. Very, very deadly. And if you've gone that high, maybe you could grab Mother Oak. That would give you Cat Eye Warriors for going underground, Eagle Eye Warriors for your pygmies or other archers possibly, Wooden Warriors or Giant Warriors. All good things that we can kind of sort of cast with a little bit of effort. So pretty good there. In Evocation, I think the most notable thing is the Banefire stuff. We can get non-cap, non-fort mages that can cast Banefire darts. Pretty nasty little spell here. It's relatively precise. It does 15 plus armor and piercing damage and has decay on it. Nasty little spell. We're not very good at going up to Banefire, but the darts are pretty good on their own anyways. Shadow Blast is another one for one death gem, which we could do some death stuff, but we're not super into it. So throwing a few gems to throw some of these out in combat might be worthwhile. Gives you a nice armor negating magic damage on a big AoE that also can paralyze things. Pretty nice little surprise for somebody. In construction, I think we want to stay away from Homunculi as research boosters because we want to be summoning God Brood with our nature gems. But we have some thuggy chassis. I think our Sacred Commander guy could be a thug, although be careful. You're still a human on a big spider, so it's not like you can't be one hit by certain things. In enchantment, I think there's lots of interesting things here. The Ignite arrows, of course, the Envenom arrows, of course, the Fire shields might be useful for things, different resistances, Earth-shattering hammers could be interesting, giant strength, weapons of sharpness, lots and lots of buffs that our units would quite like. I don't think we go probably above 5 at the absolute highest, but maybe. It's pretty darn nice. Hidden in Sand, I mentioned earlier, you can get guys who can cast this. This can get you mages and some undead units. In Thaumaturgy, actually, hang on, where is my Blight? I need to call this out. Back in Alteration at 4, we can natively get mages who are Earth 2 and Death. Blight for 5 Earth Gems. It's a remote spell that does minus 5% population, plus 15 unrest, minus 120 gold. You could just spam this at every enemy fort and just drain their income away because they have to feed people who are starving in the Blight famine. So a very interesting spell. We can cast it pretty easy. Earth Gems are always valuable, but we're not too great at using them. And we don't really have any summons that need it. I think Blight might be worthwhile considering. Okay, let's bring all of that together. So we are a nation that has pretty good melee troops and some excellent sacreds. We have standard forts of the era, so we definitely want to be out there working the land. We have a sacred who's good enough to probably expand if you give him a decent bless. We have some sacred things up here, but most of our mages are not sacred. We have a decent line troop and decent non-cap mages. So we're definitely a nation, I think, that wants to focus on expanding with good sacreds and getting out there and building lots of infrastructure. Armies that have a nice solid line of hoplites, possibly backed up by buffed archers, or at least mages, will be very good. Having some big spiders that can push their way to the front through our heavily packed hoplites is a nice battle strategy. So I think that's pretty interesting. We have some decent cap only stuff. I like the free spawn, especially out of those, although our other two are semi-usable. We have some spies, which are kind of unique. Overall, pretty interesting little mix here. I really like them. With that new patch and being able to remount a commander with an afflicted mount makes these guys even better than they were before. So quite good there. I really like middle-aged Machaka in Dom 6 quite a bit. Let's take a look at Pretenders. Middle-aged Machaka has a pretty wide variety of choices here. Let's go ahead and start at the immobiles. We do get the Colossal Fetish. 240 points is pretty expensive, but I do think he is actually usable on this nation. What he wants for a blessing will work fine on our sacreds, so that is definitely doable. We also have the Divine Glyph, notable for being very cheap, 90 points for a Dom 4. The extra heat scale is not going to do anything, but the order might. We don't have magic weapons, so maybe just a simple like magic weapon, fire shield bless, or something like that. I think this could be usable. I think this could be usable. And he doesn't have anything that prevents him from teleporting, so you could zip around with that. Monolith, again, has the pathings we would want for our sacreds. Yeah, I think that's definitely usable. Lots and lots of good ones here. Different pathing options if you wanted to go like a fortune build, maybe. Could be interesting if you wanted to go blood even. I don't think we're a good blood nation, but some of the blessings are kind of nice. We want to go budget. Just take a fountain of blood and like enchanted blood, maybe, if you're going to go really, really cheap. Although I don't think I would suggest that. In Dom 3, we do have the Great Mother, but I don't feel the Great Mother is worthwhile compared to the Colossal Fetish. Personal regen on the Colossal Fetish is almost as good as the regen on the Great Mother. And you're paying for her giving you growth scales where I don't know about that. I think the Colossal Fetish is better in this case. For other Titans, I'm not in love with most of these. If their pathing is in line with what you would want for a bless, I think that's where you would look at taking them. But otherwise, I'm not too in love. I actually kind of like the idea of an Awake Expander here. The sooner you get your cap circle, the sooner you can maximize your sacred production. If you want something to go underwater, you could go Worm or you could go Great Serpent. The Bulls are able to expand. The Man-Eater, I think, can be all right, although he's a bit pricey at 210. Our Golden Lion, I think for this nation, because we need a bless, he's going to be a little bit harder. We did a guy not too long ago that was a super duper cheap, very, very cheap, because he didn't need a bless expander. On this nation, though, I think you're missing out if you don't take something. Maybe you still take him and you go really cheap. You go like Fire Shield, and that's it. And then just a little bit of nature so he can cast personal regen on himself. I don't know. I'm not too in love with that. I think the Myrmicolan could be usable on this nation. Again, you could go like Hardskin Fire Shield would make him all right at expanding. I don't think we want a dragon here because of the sloth. If you were going to take one, nature probably. I don't know on that one. We do have a unique one here. We have the God Spider. For 200 points, though, I don't love this one. Unfortunately, Death and Glamour, it's kind of whatever. Does have affliction resistance pretty high. That's nice. He's essentially a chassis. Our Hunter Spiders are basically this. So I don't know about him. We do have another 2 unique ones down in the Dom 1s. We have the Weaver of Tales, Death, Nature, and Glamour. And he shapeshifts into a Great Spider. And he's a spy for some reason. So we have a God Spy. That's unique, I suppose. He is only 100 points, and you do get 3 paths. You can make some very budget blesses out of that, if those are the paths you're going for. We also have the Great Sorcerer at 70 points. I will point out, this is a more efficient one, the Weaver of Tales, because to make the Great Sorcerer have Glamour and Nature would already cost you 2 more points. So, 20 more points. You're already at 90 points. I don't know about that. I think the Weaver of Tales is more efficient than the Great Sorcerer. The Great Sorcerer, I'm not sure. Yeah, this guy also has shapeshifting. I don't like him. Stick with the Weaver of Tales, I think, if you're going this low. Let's take a look at a couple examples of gods that I built. First up, we have King Chunky. This is a colossal fetish that is awake. We took larger and hard skin. Do note that we had to pay for this with 2 turmoil and a heat. This was okay. It wasn't the best thing ever, but he's a pretty strong chassis. This makes our sacreds very, very tough. This gives him... You want to ideally wait until you have Fire Shield and Personal Regen before you do things that are really hard. Maybe even Personal Iron Skin or Temper Flesh. But he's pretty good. Do note, more Dominion means more HP. So try to keep him where there's a lot of Dominion. You don't want to be racking up a lot of afflictions on him. Where he's really good is he's mindless. So like big things that can kill big stompy dudes generally don't apply to him. In addition, he's not a trampler, so he doesn't tire himself out doing that. He's an innate spellcaster. So get him a couple close range spells and he'll just go to town on people. Another option here is possibly, instead of the fire, going astral. Astral shield is really good for keeping him safe. He could also make himself ethereal. That would be pretty handy for keeping him alive while he stands there and tosses out spells. Almost like a mobile monolith at that point. Next up, we have Colby. This is a dormant man-eater. I just needed dormant because I needed some points. This is enchanted blood and hard skin. So this is a little bit better, I feel, than just the larger hard skin that we had on the other guy for a bless. Do note, though, the other guy was awake. So I'm not sure having this guy come out as a dormant is that good. He's going to eat your population. He's not particularly good at research. We're not a blood nation, so that doesn't provide too much utility. Yeah, I don't know. Usable, not in love with him. Finally, we have Spindle. This is a Weaver, that Dom 1 chassis we were looking at. And on him, we took Regeneration and Dread. And that's it. He comes in awake. We only have 1 Turmoil and 1 Heat with 5 Dominion. I found I couldn't really afford more than 5 spiders anyways, and we're going to probably want to spam temples, and we'll get this up naturally. We can do all the phase summons with him. We can do the big nature rituals if we want to. I like those quite a bit. We do have the Death Glamour crosspath, so we could do Aura of Dread on him. And with Regen and Dread, this makes our Sacreds really difficult to deal with. We can still give them protection buffs via our mages. We can still do other like attack buffs and things for them there too. But having the Dread makes our very hard to take out Sacreds much better at finishing off armies. And combining that with Regen just keeps them going. This was a very good, I had hardly any attrition when I was expanding with him. I like Spindle quite a bit. He also has the advantage of giving us research early on, which we're going to really struggle with otherwise because our Sacreds are so expensive, it's hard to get mages. I would rush to Conjuration 4 and try to get some early nature searching from one of our recruitables, and then we can use the recruitable guy to summon in God Broods. And that'll give us a spike of some extra Sacreds around the time that you may be considering going to that first rushed war. I like this guy quite a bit. Otherwise, I do think that you could get away with a lot of these because our Sacreds are just so good. As long as you take a decent bless, you're going to be pretty happy with the performance here. The Hunter Spiders are really good chassis. I really like these. Very, very good Sacred Cavalry. And because they just have natural 16 protection, you don't have to worry about getting hit in the head or something stupid that a lot of other mounts have to deal with. Okay, so in conclusion, this is a nation that has moved forward a little bit. They have definitely changed from how they were in the early age. They have an interesting and useful and good Sacred that pretty much demands a blessing. They have a pretty good mage lineup with pretty good access to different magic, especially buffing type magic. We have natively castable native spells, which is a huge plus. Illwinter, please. Every nation who has sacred animals should have a natively castable summon of sacred animals. It just makes sense. It should be a thing. Please, please, Illwinter. I want to see that for everybody. Another thing I would really love to see is a late age Machaka. Either a return of Lion, or what happens to the nation after they kill all the spiders, or I don't know. It would be really cool. I would love it, especially if they move away from the standard death blood thing. Maybe they return to monkey or return to nature or something like that. Maybe they team up with some of the apes, or I don't know, something cool there. I would really love to see that. Let me know what your feedback is on gods. Do you think maybe we could even go imprisoned? I do think that would be possible on this nation because our sacreds are just so good, and we can still do scales expansion too. So in imprisoned, we could combine both of those strengths. Otherwise, let me know what other crazy blesses you've come up with. The spy blessing, the turn your big spiders into stealth geist blessing, or whatever else shenanigans you got up to. Overall, very fun nation. I'm looking forward to playing this one. I think it's going to be a hoot. Just for people who watch the Atlantis stream, this is the better water map. I did get on my other PC and save it. It's a little big, actually, but yeah, this is probably the most interesting map I've ever played in Dom 6. It is really cool. So we'll probably not play it on this stream. Next time we do a Water Nation, we'll probably revive it, but very cool map, I have to say. So get in there and play with the map generator a little bit. Gin yourself up something cool. Definitely a underutilized thing, I think, for me. Should definitely do more of that. Okay, builders, if you haven't already, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And if you're not, hopefully this is the video that I have earned your subscription on. Much appreciated. Do remember, you can always drop by stream and chit chat. It's usually on Fridays at the same time every week. And if you really enjoyed the video, don't forget super thanks, super chats, and channel memberships are all open. Channel memberships will get you early access to these pregame videos and a smattering of other gaming content. All right, builders, get out there and build yourself a spider web, and I'll catch you on stream.